So today I am so excited to be able to sit down and chat with you guys and really reflect on this entire past homeschool year, all the resources, all the different curriculums that we've used. And I wanted to do not just an end of the year kind of homeschool reflections, but really a hits and misses type video as well, which you can tell from the title, that's what this video is really going to be about, is really showing you guys what worked for our family and what didn't and why not. Anyway, if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Dana, and just so you guys know where I am at in my homeschooling and motherhood journey, this will be my 6th year homeschooling, and right now I am in the middle of preparing for a 4th grader, a 3rd grader, a preschool / kindergartner, and I'll explain that in an upcoming video. And then my youngest will be 3 years old. So that is where I am at right now. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about our curriculums, hits and misses for the past school year. So instead of dividing everything up by grade, I thought I would go ahead and divide it up by subject or category, starting with math. For some reason, this year has been a year that has just really been freeing for me as a homeschool mama, as I've chosen not to be bound to just one thing and to just kind of jump around and feel free to do so. So I definitely did that with math this year. If you guys saw my curriculum picks video that I did last year, you know that I was also very torn between what maths to pull from. So I'm going to show you all the different resources that I did pull from this year, and then we'll go into detail about what they are. So for the Open and Go style workbooks, we used the Christian Light Education math for both my 2nd and 3rd grader this past year. And then we also dabbled a little bit into Ace Pace, and I'm going to explain why here in a little bit. And then we initially started out our school year with the Simply Charlotte Mason Arithmetic series, a wonderful series. And then we also dabbled into and still love and use Ray's New Arithmetic. I have the primary arithmetic and intellectual arithmetic, and I've used those with my 2nd and 3rd grader. And then I even dabbled into a little bit of Hamilton's Arithmetic. This book takes you really from basic necessities all the way to like college level in one book, which is incredible to me. But yeah, we also dabbled into Hamilton's as well. So utilizing all these different resources, and why? Well, again, if you saw my last video, you know I was already torn going into the school year as far as what we wanted to use. I did settle when we first started on our homeschool year. I did settle on the Charlotte Mason Elementary Arithmetic series. This is books both 2 and 3 for my 2nd and 3rd grader. And then I also had the little math graph books that went with them for our notebooking. And this was beautiful. It really was a beautifully done curriculum. I think for book 3, for my 3rd grader, he got a little bit bored with just doing the same thing over and over again. However, he did become a master at counting money and adding money, taking it away, and things like that, because that really for the first part of the book, that's really all it is that. But because it was so heavily based around money, which again is great when you're focusing on mastering this concept, beautifully done, he did become really bored of this. And I feel like that first semester, and I talked about this in my the 5 rules I follow when choosing a homeschool curriculum video. That was my video before this, I think. And I talked about this lightly, where when I was planning for our homeschool year, I was thinking about the season we were currently in instead of the whole picture, like the whole big picture year. And so this worked for the first part of the semester, and then we did this in combination with Ray's math. So we would do this for our copy work and our actual writing and our notebook type math, and then we would do this for oral practice. We would do a lot of story problems with Ray's. We would do like review of multiplication tables and things like that, whereas in these were mostly just your adding of money and you know, the actual problems that they would copy in their notebooks. So this combination of these 2 resources were really just a beautiful fit for our family for that first semester. However, in the spring is when our family starts to get really busy with our like travel work season. And so that's when we had to kind of put this down and go back to just our Open and Go workbook, because the Open and Go workbook style is really just what works best in the busy season of life for our family. And it's extremely travel friendly. Like, because of the light units being so small, this was something that I could just toss in our bag and be good. So when it came to traveling, I would toss in a light unit, our language arts light unit, and then their McGuffey Readers, and that's it. Like, it was a very, very small book bag to have all of our core subjects kind of packed, but it's not just travel friendly. That's not just why. I wanted something that was also going to be really sound and thorough, keep us on track, and we kind of jumped halfway through. So what I ended up doing is I got about halfway through their Raised Arithmetic series, and then we jumped into the new semester, the spring semester, and then we jumped into Light Unit 305 for my third grader. So he's working on the second half of this, and it ended up meeting him really right where he was at because he was already kind of on track using the Charlotte Mason math with the raised math. So we ended up switching back to this for our main core curriculum. But I was on Christian Book one time, the website, and I was buying some books for the kiddos, and I don't remember what it was I was buying. I think maybe it's just some storybooks when they were having a sale, and I came across the Ace Pace math. I was like, you know what, it's super affordable. It's actually even cheaper than Christian Light Education. It's really affordable, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it as far as it being a more colorful version of Christian Light Education. So it's like, you know what, I'm gonna pick a couple of them up, give it a try, and we did. And my kids really, really liked it. However, this was kind of the same issue we ran into with Charlotte Mason math, as it being just a lot of the same thing. However, it's mastery based. So if your kiddos really thrive with mastery and you want an open and go workbook style, I would 100% recommend this curriculum. It's amazing, even though it might not have worked. Well, I don't say it didn't have worked, because I feel like in this video I don't have a ton of misses. It worked, it just wasn't our favorite, if that makes sense. So I would definitely recommend, like, if you do have little ones that just need a lot of practice with math concepts, and you do want something that is just open and go, zero prep, and everything is right here where you need it, 100% a phenomenal curriculum. And it's bright and fun and colorful and interactive. You follow a little storyline throughout, and it is really just a really, really sweet curriculum. However, like I already mentioned, it was a little bit monotonous for my little ones, just from doing the same thing. So this was another thing too, that I would rotate this with this to switch it up a little bit. So I will be very honest and transparent with you guys that using Ace Pace, Christian Light Education, plus our Raise and Charlotte Mason, that when it comes to completing a grade at the end of the school year, we're not going to be checking off one entire whole curriculum. Now, with that being said, we are now, what are we in? We're in the middle of May, which is also crazy to believe. But this is Light Unit 305. My son is now on 308. So we did not do the first 5 light units of this because we did this. So I guess technically we will have completed a whole grade, even though I utilized different parts of different curriculums. So that makes sense. So even though, yes, we're completing the grade, we're doing the second half of this and the first half of this. If that made sense, is what we will end up completing by the end of the year when it comes to our math. But that's kind of how our math started. We started out with Charlotte Mason, just as a recap. We started out with Charlotte Mason, beautiful, wonderful, gentle. It got a little bit monotonous and boring for my second and third grader. I'm not going to consider this a full-on miss though, because it's just beautifully done and you do master a lot of those skills. It was just too much practice, I think, or maybe not enough. It depends how you look at it. So not our favorite, however, I am glad to give it a try because I might end up coming back to this in future years to where the little ones. So I am definitely keeping it on my shelf. And then we switched, of course, as I already mentioned, to CLE, and this is what we're finishing the year out with. So that's a little bit how our math went. Again, it was all over the place this year when it comes to picking and choosing. And I felt like every time I did a homeschool with us type video, I'd be using a different math. And so I'd have a lot of questions like, oh, are you using that now? I'm like, well, today we are. Today, yes, we are using that math. And it kept things really fun for my little ones, which I loved. So even between the 2 workbooks, switching it up was just really fun. And what I've also found is Christian Light Education can be really intense and it can advance very, very quickly. I would almost consider it a year above grade level, has been my experience. So switching from this to this was like, this was almost just a fun little workbook for them when it came to doing math. It really was just a simple little switch up. So I liked keeping these on hand. And I would honestly take these a lot when we were traveling as well, because they were fun and they were easy to do for them. So it was just really keeping those skills up. You're really mastering concepts when you do this. And then we would be home. Sometimes, again, I would take this while traveling, but when we were home and ready to do more advanced concepts and getting back into actually learning new things, we do our Christian Light Education. So that's a brief rundown of math. Again, it was a little bit all over the place. I'm gonna put this stack down and go grab the next pile of what we did this year. So our core language arts curriculum this year has been the Christian Light Education Language Arts program. And it's one that I'm going to be continuing to use for the upcoming school year. This was a huge hit in our family, and it has been ever since we implemented it in our home. I have yet to find something that is just so sound and thorough. Now this really does combine that mastery slash spiral approach beautifully, because you're going to be mastering a lot of concepts. There's typically an average of about 5 pages per lesson, and you're just going to have a lot of different review. You're going to have a ton of different practice, but every single day you're going to be introduced to a new concept, and then every day after you're going to be building on that same concept but also reviewing. And I love the approach. I love all the scribbles, but I love how just incredibly sound and thorough this curriculum has been, and how it has served our family so well. It has spelling, it has penmanship. The lessons are just beautifully done, and I'm really incredibly thankful for something that is so simple yet just packs a punch when it comes to our language arts curriculum. So this was one of the biggest hits in our home this past year when it comes to curriculum. So I thought I would go ahead and just jump straight into what we did for reading this past year, and that is doing the McGuffey Readers. We used the McGuffey Readers for both my 2nd and 3rd grader, and oh my goodness, this is our first entire year using them, and it was beautiful. It was so nice, guys. The reason why I wanted to kind of combine these together is the reason why I think this works so well for our family is having something that's a little bit more rigid, I should say, and structured and covers everything and is really advanced in my opinion when it comes to language arts. It ties together beautifully for a more minimalistic approach to our reading curriculum. Now, I have done the language arts, like the Christian Light language arts with the Christian Light reading. And I've had a couple of you guys actually ask me or message me asking me why I didn't do the Christian Light education reading with the CLE language arts. And it was a little bit too much, but I found that because this is so incredibly sound and covers everything I need within language arts, that I can step back and do a very minimalistic approach to reading. So does that mean that this is not sound and thorough? Absolutely not. It just means I can take it a little bit of a different approach and have it still serve our family beautifully. And this past year, really seeing my little ones and their reading skills bloom and develop has just been a huge blessing in our home, and it's all within like 10 minutes a day. So it's been amazing. But for the sake of anyone new here today, I do want to give you a brief rundown of exactly how I utilize these. Now, I have made a couple of designated videos about these, and I will have those linked down below if you do want to learn more about them. But in today's video, I did want to show you guys, I have actually both, let me pull them out here, level 2 and 3 of the lesson books from Sherry Hayes. I did create my own lesson plan because I wanted a 5-day lesson plan. These are designed, I think, just for 4. You could probably break it up into more, but it's like a 4-day lesson plan in here. But the way I do the McGuffey Readers is I break up every single lesson into 1 lesson per week. And if you are brand new to the McGuffies, you might look at the stories and be like, that's not a lot for just 1 week, but it is so much, it packs a punch. And the way I do this is on day 1, we start every single day with reading our study words, which is your list at the end of the story. So we'll read our study words, and this is also the same list that we will use for our spelling list that week. So they're not only mastering some more difficult words from their readers with spelling, they're also working on spelling in the language arts program, which is a beautiful combination. So I found that with the McGuffey Readers, the study words are a little bit more challenging. So they really have been blossoming and growing so much, and just their vocabulary. I use the originals, so the vocabulary is just very rich, it's advanced, and it's very old-fashioned, which I love, and I think it boosts their understanding and really honestly just boosts their vocabulary so much, and they're learning how to spell some really advanced words for their grade, which I love. So anyway, back to day 1, we will read the study words first, that's what we do every day, and then we'll go back and read our story. And then after we read the story, we will open up our lesson book, and all we'll do for copy work is go back to our study words, and then my kiddos will break this up into 2 days. So for the first day, they're going to copy the first 2 lines, and then the second day when we do it, they'll copy work the second 2 lines and things like that. But every single day, we start off by just reading it. So we'll read the study words, we'll read the story, and then what changes is what we do in our lesson book. So by day 3, we are reading the whole thing, and then we are now going to copy whole sentences. The phrases, at least in the second reader, the phrases are numbered. So I will oftentimes have my 3rd grader copy an entire phrase, not just like 1 or 2 sentences, but he'll copy like a whole section. And then by day 4 or 5 is the most important. That's when you get to dictation. And dictation really ties everything together. It's your little one's time to shine, as they like to call it, because they've already worked on their spelling words all week. They've used these same words in writing the sentences for copy work. They've used the same words when it comes to writing the phrases for copy work. So now they get to close this book, they get to pick up their lesson book, and you get to tell them what sentences to write, and then from their own memory, they get to think of like, okay, this is how the sentence is structured, this is how the spelling words are spelt, and things like that. So on day 4 or 5, whatever you decide to do with your lesson plan, they're tying together so many different skills, like the forming of the sentence, the structure, using their spelling words in a complete sentence, and things like that. So dictation is such an important day. And then also on day 4 or 5, depending on what's going on for the week, we'll also do a slight version of a spelling test where we'll go over some of our words that we've been studying throughout the week. And then by day 5, this is one of the reasons why I love doing just 1 lesson a week with the McGuffies, is by day 5, by the time they're reading the story, they have mastered it so well that it's not just like opening up a reader and reading another story every single day and not mastering a story. But by day 4 or 5, they are now reading it with full expression. They're changing their voices. They're really getting into how to tell a story well. And I think that's really important, and that's something that is missing from a lot of common curriculums, because a lot of reading curriculums, you just turn the page to the next reader every single day without really learning how to tell a story well. Like, how do we change our voices and get into character? And so when you have the opportunity to spend an entire week on 1 story, then by day 4 or 5, they just really get into fun character. They learn how to really tell a story well, which is so important, is to really know how to tell a story well. What are the emotions being felt? Like, what's going on in the story? Can you tell me about like what this person is feeling? And things like that. So that is everything. I mean, like spelling, they're mastering their handwriting skills because you're copying every day, sentence structure. So everything that we're learning in language arts is really brought to life in a very minimalistic approach. So even though I say it's minimal, they're covering so much. But one of my favorite things, again, is by the end of that week, they're just having a lot of fun telling the story. So it's not just like, they're not just reading the page of a reader to get on to the next page. They are really getting into it. And I love it. And it's only 10 minutes a day. So that's also a huge benefit of that. Some other reading/language arts resources that I pulled from this past year, and things that I didn't really use as much as I thought I would. I utilized every now and then when I noticed we were struggling or we need some extra help, or we just had a week where we wanted to switch it up. That's everything I'm going to be talking about now. But one of the things that we utilized for every now and then was the eclectic spelling book. Now, I will go ahead and say that I'm going to be utilizing this a whole lot more in the upcoming school year, specifically for my 2nd grader. Now, my 3rd grader was the one that needed a little bit of help with spelling this past school year, so we utilized this. However, my 2nd grader, I'll probably end up putting her in this as well. But this is, again, another one of those kind of oral spelling things where it's open and go book where you can just work on the list, you're memorizing the list. So it's beautifully done. I really can't talk highly enough of it. And I would say, like, if you have little ones that need help with spelling or memorizing different phonics rules, definitely recommend this. It's pretty affordable, and you can get your kids all the way from beginning letter sounds all the way through college level with 1 book, which I always am amazed at a lot of the vintage readers and stuff, how they can take you so far with mastering different lists. So I highly recommend this if you do want a spelling resource that can really cover every single grade that your family has in your home under 1 book, and they can really become masters at spelling. So I'm going to be utilizing this a lot more in the next coming year. But this was neither a hit nor a miss because we utilized it but not a ton, but we will be in the next year. So I guess you can say it's a hit. Another thing that we started out using that we ended up not using, I'm going to explain why here in a minute, but that is the Gentle Grammar series. I talked about this in what we were using for the upcoming year last year when it came to curriculum picks. And I think I originally got this because I wasn't sure if I was going to do the Christian Light Education Language Arts, and I was kind of going back and forth between not knowing what to do. And so I was trying to make, originally, anyway, I was trying to make the McGuffey Readers become my complete language arts program, which you can 100% do. And I know a lot of mamas here on YouTube that are phenomenal and can do everything. I even have like the little grammar bookmarks that go with it. And I have utilized this as a full language arts curriculum. But I found for my style, I needed something that could do the teaching for me as far as language arts. So that's why I went back to CLE, language arts, and then just stuck with reading. Anyway, with all that being said, these were why I picked up these resources. And these are so beautiful. And they're not a miss, and they're not really a hit either, only because we didn't use them much, because we ended up having all the practice we needed within that CLE program. But this is such a gentle, again, it's called Gentle Grammar, a beautiful approach to grammar for your little ones. It's just 1 page a day. Copy the following questions. Will the bird sing? Shall I help you? So you're just going through different parts of speech, and you're doing a lot of different copy work in just like 1 page a day, and it's beautifully done. So if you are wanting to do something that is not Christian Light Education as rigid, and you do want to still do grammar alongside this, I would recommend, if you want a non-like curriculum, to pair Gentle Grammar with Splendid Spelling, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and the McGuffey Readers as a complete language arts reading everything you need curriculum. That's what I ended up starting out doing until I realized I just wanted to keep it into 1 unit. So I went back to CLE. That's kind of what I jumped around with. Anyway, all that to say, now to Splendid Spelling. I ended up utilizing this a lot for my 3rd grader this year. And I ended up purchasing another one for my 2nd grader, because now I think I'm gonna have her go through this. A beautifully done program. This is actually done in a very similar way to the McGuffey Readers, where you do 1 lesson a week and you're mastering that list. And so every single day you're adding on building blocks, but it's also very gentle in its approach. And it's also done by the same lady that does the lesson books and Gentle Grammar. It's all the same author. Anyway, I love all of Sherry's resources. They are just beautifully done. That's why I'm not really giving them a hit or a miss, because even though we didn't utilize them full time this year, we did utilize them some. However, I have nothing negative to say about them, just because, again, they're just lovely. They're really beautiful resources. The reason why I ended up not using like Gentle Grammar and Splendid Spelling with the McGuffies and making it a core language arts thing is a personal, it's a very personal issue of just not being confident enough in covering all the language arts things. I always felt like pulling all the different resources, and even those grammar bookmarks from Land of Kakiak, I adore them so much. I just felt like every single day I was having to check off like 10 different things to make sure all the different areas of language arts was being covered. Just because that's one thing, not one thing, I care about many things, but one of the things that I care a lot about is that my children have a very firm and solid foundation in language arts and their growth and development with reading. I've just always been careful with making sure that building block specifically is, just because like so many other curriculums and so many other books all ties back to really understanding the English language, and reading, of course, is how they're going to do deep dives on whatever it is that they're interested in. And so I really wanted to make sure that our core understanding of that was solid. And to be honest, I didn't have enough self-confidence to think I was covering everything. So that's why I kind of permanently landed back on the Christian Light Education Language Arts, because I knew that with that program being so sound and thorough and having experienced it already and seeing the growth, that was really just what was going to work best, not just for my children, of giving them such a beautiful foundation, but for me as a homeschool mama too, is something to consider, that as we as mamas need to find something that not only helps our children grow and is solid, but also that works best for us too. And so I landed back, all that to say is I landed back on the Christian Light Education Language Art program. I'm very happy about that. So I have talked about these pretty recently, but I thought I would go ahead and highlight them here, again, in case you guys are new. But I'm going to talk about a few resources that I've used for my preschooler this past year. And both are huge hits. They really are. We discovered the Foundational Phonics Letter Mastery Program. This is a huge hit, and I'm so incredibly thankful for Ariel for sending this to me. back of, it's been a few months now of utilizing this, but this is a beautiful program for teaching phonics, especially if you have speech delayed little ones or late talkers, or really anyone that needs extra help with mastering letter sounds and phonics, and it's beautiful and gentle. If you're not familiar with this, I have 2 videos on this made of talking about it. One I did a complete kind of flip through, and then another one was after actually using it for a while. So I'll have those videos linked down below if you do want some more information on it. But if you are in need of a phonics curriculum that is both gentle, beautiful, and really designed for those special needs little ones, can't talk highly enough about this. Highly recommend. So that's what we did for phonics for my preschooler, and a huge hit in our home. Another huge hit for our preschool years is I Love My Father's World. I think it's darling. It's one of the most enriching curriculums for the little years, and I don't have any experience in using it, honestly, in anything above kindergarten. But for the little years, it's just darling. It's so, so pretty, just the amount, not pretty, pretty is not the right word, it's just beautiful, I guess, as far as the experiences that you take, and the way that the teacher guide is laid out to really help you as a mama stay on track, to be guided, while also being able to pick and choose what you want to do based on the day. And I'm a person that will talk on my channel about a preschool curriculum not being a necessity. However, for me, it kind of is, only because I need something that's going to help me as a mama be structured and intentional and guided with my preschooler. Because right now, my 2nd and 3rd grader, well, soon to be 3rd and 4th grader, are still in the years of really needing my instruction and hands-on approach to teaching reading and math and things like that. So I knew that in order to teach my preschooler hands-on as well, I needed to find something that helped me be guided and intentional, and this does this. So this takes all the planning work out for me. Like, it does everything for me. It literally gives me a play-by-play, what books to read, what activities to do. And honestly, as a busy mama, this is just amazing. I love it. And it has been a huge blessing to our family. So this has provided the core for like our reading and things like that, or phonics development and things like that, whereas in this covers really everything else. It covers even basic math, or like number counting, and a lot of nature study and things that my little ones just love doing. So your arts and crafts, your activities. And the one thing I like about this too as well is, yes, the teacher planner has your day-to-day, like day-by-day play of everything to do, but you don't have to do it all. You do not have to do it all. A lot of the times I will pick and choose what we would want to do, what she maybe feels like doing, but just having a guide that's open and go and so planned for me is just amazing, especially in the little years when I want something to be intentional with my preschooler. Otherwise, I'm going to be honest, otherwise I feel like she gets overlooked. But this is just amazing, and in the preschool years, I really have to have something that's going to help me be intentional with her. So that's why I love it. And this coming fall, my youngest will be 3 years old. So I'll probably have her do like my little years preschool binders, because I know she's 100% going to want to be included in our homeschool mornings. So I have some plans, which I'll share in an upcoming video as far as what she'll be doing. But again, there are also plans that will help me be intentional with making sure she feels included and special, which is so important when homeschooling multiple ages, is that everyone feels as equally loved. And I love that. So another few resources that we have loved in our home. Sorry if you can hear the guineas. I think they're right outside the window. They're very loud. Anyway, we use the 5 in a Row curriculum, and we love this. For the sake of anyone who is new here, we do a very minimalistic approach to our core curriculum, which means we only do math, reading, and language arts, and that is it as far as our core subjects go. Everything else that we cover is done in the 5 in a row way, I should say, which means that we are covering art, we're doing music, we're also doing geography, we're doing social studies, also history, science, really anything you can think of outside of our core curriculum, we cover in this, and it's done in such a beautiful way. I think I have a couple designated videos on this that I can have linked down below. They even go through things like emotions. There is some language arts in here where you're studying different like concepts and things. There's math, there's science, there's just all kinds of things, and it's all done in such a really fun way. So if you're not familiar with 5 in a Row, what it is you read the same story 5 times in a row, or I should say 5 days in a row. So for an example, the book Owl Moon, we would read that, and then every single day we would add on a little bit to that. So some days we would learn about the science behind it. Some days we would do an art project based on it. Some days we'd learn about the geography, like where does the story take place. We'd also learn about relationships. What are the relationships like in this? what is the history behind it of the town that they're from, like all this stuff. So it's really taking a storybook, like a picture book, beautiful picture books. I love all the suggestions that they have in here, and it really makes the stories come to life. And I've shared this every time I talk about 5 in a row, that the stories that we read together as a family with utilizing this are permanently like one of my kiddos' all-time favorite books, just because they have so many memories tied to it. Because again, we're reading the book 5 days in a row. Every single day we're adding to the discussion, we're learning more things about it, again, whether that be history, geography, social studies, whatever the case may be. This covers all of the extra things for me. So I don't need an extra curriculum per se for geography, for history, for science, for all those different things. This does it for me, and I love it. It's a very simple guide, and it does give you the ability to, like, if you want to dive deeper on it, you can. And I know some people that will use this as their complete curriculum, and I think that is amazing. But we use it for everything else apart from our core curriculum. The other thing that I got that I kind of got to go along with this past year was the 5 in a row Christian Character and Bible Study Supplement. This was amazing. It was phenomenal to add on to this. It really gives you discussion points and Bible verses and character building things that really point back to the same story. So you can take something as simple as, let me find the most recent one we did. Even like, for example, Make Way for Ducklings. This was one of my favorite stories growing up as a kid, was Make Way for Ducklings. And I love this because it's going to give you the biblical meanings behind it, scriptures you can look up. You're talking about gratitude, parental nurturing, everything like that. And so the Christian Companion really gives the biblical perspective of such a simple, sweet story. Whereas in this, it's going to give you like your art, music, history, kind of behind everything else about the story. This is going to give you a biblical look at it. So it's going to make the kiddos think about the story in a whole new way by the time you've completed both of these, because they're going to look at the story, they're going to know where the country is that the story took place in, like the story about Ping, for example, in China. They're going to know where it is on the map. They're going to know all about China because we probably watched videos about it as well. This is a beautiful job in tying in, you know, we're also learning about disobedience. We're learning about listening and things like that when it comes to the story. So now they have all these stories that we've read multiple times where they look at it in a whole new light, because they're not only seeing, like, again, the geography and everything like that behind it, but they're also seeing the biblical meaning behind it as well. And I feel like this is a really good job in teaching our little ones how to view things through a biblical lens. I think this is a beautiful job. You can take something as simple as a beautiful little kid's picture book and give it a biblical meaning, and it helps them view things just in a really, really different way. And I love that. I love that so much. It's been wonderful. Anyway, I think that is everything that we use this past school year. And again, I am so sorry if you can hear the guineas. I feel like I am talking really loudly over them. Anyways, I appreciate you guys being here so much. I am going to try to get my curriculum picks videos out here shortly, so you guys can get an idea of what is up for us in the next coming school year. But thank you guys again for being here. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and God bless. Bye, guys.